Hello, I'm David Preisner again with this third tutorial on Audacity. We're going to be going over exporting your files as MP3s, saving your files, and using good file organization to be able to find and use your audio files for later on. Okay, so I'm going to just make a really quick audio clip here. Now is the time for all true Americans to come to the aid of their country. All right. Now, let's say that was a reading from a book that I was doing. What I want to do is I want to save this. Now, if I were to save this file, what it would do is it would save it as an Audacity project. So I'm going to click Save, and it gives us a warning saying this is an Audacity project. Well, what that means is it's not an audio file that you can play on one of your players. It's just the project, so you can come back and work on your project in Audacity later on. So we're going to say OK, and let's go ahead and figure out where we're going to save it. Now, what I like to do in my file organization is I like to save my files in my document. But then I also like to go ahead and assign a year in which I am working. In this case, it's 2012. That's when I'm making this tutorial. And I've created a file called Audacity Tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and save this in here. And I'm going to make a new folder. You can either right-click and say New Folder in Windows and click there, or in Windows 7 I have an option right there. So two ways, either right-click and say New Folder. And this new folder, let's say it's the name of a book. So I'm going to say call the folder Book. I'm going to open it up, and let's say this was the first chapter that I read, or the intro. So I'm going to call this file Chapter 1. Okay? Now if you have a book name, you could put the book name and then say Chapter 1 or something like that, just so that you know exactly what it is that you're looking at the file later on. Okay? So let's save this as Chapter 1. Now if I go to my documents, and I look in 2012, and I look in my Audacity tutorials, and I look at the book, notice that it has the little Audacity logo on there. That's because it's an Audacity project. Alright? We still don't have our audio file yet, but we're going to take a look at that. How are we going to do that? Well, assuming that we've got this all trimmed up just the way we like it, now is the time for all true Americans to come to the aid of their country. Okay, well, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. So let's go ahead and export this. Notice that the audio track is a stereo track in 44/100 Hertz. That's how it comes up by default. And the project rate 44/100. That's what we want. That's perfect. Let's go ahead and use the export. Okay, this is going to export everything. Alright, somehow I'm in a different folder there. So Audacity Tutorials, Book. Now notice there's a Chapter 1 data. What is that from? That's something Audacity created when it created the Audacity file. Now Chapter 1 is what we want to call it. It automatically filled that in because we had saved the Audacity file as Chapter 1. Otherwise it would have said untitled, and you would have just type in the name here. Now it gives us a lot of options as far as exporting. But I want to show you how to do the MP3. Now before you click Save, let's look at the options here. Now there's different quality levels that we can save the MP3 at. Okay? Now 96 is going to be just fine. So I recommend putting it at 96. Now to make this MP3 a little bit smaller, what we're going to do is we're going to say join stereo. And that's going to be just fine. I'll just make it a little smaller. If we make it stereo, for if you have sound effects that you've put in that are using a stereo effect or whatnot going on, you'd want to keep it as stereo. But as far as for like reading books or making audiobooks, a joint stereo is going to be just fine. So I'm going to say OK. Oh, and we can do variable or constant. These are just different options here. Variable, average, constant. We're going to say constant at 96 kilobits per second. Join stereo. OK. So now we're going to hit save. Oop. Oh, there we go. Chapter 1. Click in there. Save. Now it pops up a dialog. Ask the artist's name. So what I recommend is you type in your name. So like in my case, I'll type in David Preisner. Track title. You could call it Chapter 1. And then album title, what you could do is call that what the book name is. And I'm making a fictitious name here, True Americans. Alright. True American. There we go. You can put in the year. Any information you can put in here for clarifying what exactly has happened, when it happened, and whatnot. Helps for later on. And you could even enter in some of your own information there if you wanted. But for right now, that looks good to me, so I'm going to say OK, and ta-da! It has exported it as an MP3. Let's go ahead and open that up, and there's Chapter 1, and it's an MP3, and the contributing artist, notice, is David Preisner, and the album is True American, if it was a book reading from a book called True American. So this is an easy way to keep track of your files and whatnot. And notice it's in name of book. Okay. If we go back and we change that book name to True Book, True American, now it's going to be even easier to find that section because we're in, check this out, in my documents I've got 2012, it's an Audacity tutorial, and the book True American and Chapter 1. So it's really easy to find, keep track of, and organize the files that way so that later on they're really easy to find and use. You could further divide this up into MP3s. So like for example, say, hey, I want all my MP3s together. Well, that's fine. We just make a new folder, MP3s. There we go. And I can drag that Chapter 1 right into MP3s. And then I can have all my chapters in the MP3 folder. So just little things like that help organize your files. Now, of course, you can have your files organized any way you want. I just recommend having a system that is logical, makes sense, and works for you, and keeps your file libraries organized and sweet. All right. So this concludes our third Audacity tutorial. I don't plan on making any further in the future. If you missed the other two tutorials, the first one went over the installation of Audacity on a Windows machine, showed you how to download Audacity off the internet, also how to install the MP3 encoder. The second tutorial went over recording and editing your files, and of course this last one we went over how to export and save your files and hopefully set them up in a logical way so that they make sense to you. All right. Well, for Family First Radio Network, this has been David Preisner, and I hope you've enjoyed these tutorials.